I think more for family-oriented would be better. Now, the park would be really nice. It had a lot of history here, and the park was pretty neat, so I'd like to see that again.
A few parks built here, like a nice scenery park, maybe like some few docks along the way, just chill.
It'd be nice to bring back kind of what they had in the past.
An iconic waterfront park slated for redevelopment. Will the future of Ontario Place live up to its storied past? We know that future won't include a casino or condos, but pretty much everything else appears to be on the table, which has some people concerned about the next chapter for the 50-year-old park. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley joins us live now from Ontario Place. And, you know, I spent Saturday down there at the CBC Music Festival at Echo Beach. It is still an incredible space with so much potential, Mike.
And Dwight, in the mind of Premier Doug Ford, that potential is for Ontario Place to become a world-class destination. And the government is now throwing open the doors to proposals from around the world. A grim day on Toronto's waterfront, forcing an announcement on the future of Ontario Place inside.
The biggest, boldest, most spectacular site that we can build.
The tourism minister declares what won't be on this site.
But I want to be clear, our vision for Ontario Place does not include residential developments or casinos.
But beyond those restrictions, what could the province's waterfront park become under a Doug Ford government?
The spectrum is wide open: sports, entertainment, retail.
The call for development proposals launched on this website today. The government's vision, a year-round destination attracting millions of visitors, a place with broad appeal for all ages and demographics, day and night.
We have a jewel in Ontario Place. It just needs to be polished.
The government says developers mustn't touch the Budweiser stage, but there's no such promise for any other buildings at Ontario Place, including the Cinesphere.
None of the things that we value are protected in this proposal. There's carte blanche to destroy the Cinesphere and the Pods, carte blanche to destroy Trillium Park, and there is no guarantee that the public will have access.
What we're doing at this point in time is looking for ideas to come forward and to make it as open as possible.
This is not Doug Ford's private property, which is the way that he's treating it.
It's been 7 years since the Liberal government shut down Ontario Place. The only redevelopment that's happened since then, this waterfront park. Despite the opposition to Premier Doug Ford's vision, he does have allies.
I've been talking to the Premier on a regular basis, and all indications we're going to work together. They want something spectacular, and I fully buy into that.
Now, developers have to submit their proposals for changing Ontario Place by early September, and the government's timeline is to sign a deal sometime next year. Dwight?
All right, thank you for that, Mike.
How do you feel about the fact that beer is only available right now in beer stores and some grocery stores?
Love it.
It sucks that we only have to go to the beer store and the LCBO, and like wine is the wine rack. Like, open it up. Let's open it up.
Some people are for it, others against it. The province looking at ending its contract with the beer store. It's a hot topic for consumers, and at Queen's Park, we'll bring you that story in just a few minutes. Plus,
imagine you're all ready to go for your vacation, your bags are pretty much packed, and all of a sudden you get an email saying that your flight has been canceled. I'm Natalie Nanowski, and that's what happened with several people who booked with Sunwing. I'll have more on that story and how you can protect yourself coming up.
a call today for the Queen's Park to reverse its funding cuts to Ontario's libraries.
We need to have a fully funded library service so that people, regardless of where they're located, can access the resources that they need. And the official opposition.
The cuts were announced last month, affecting services like interlibrary loans. The NDP's culture critic says library workers are already losing their jobs, adding there's a growing concern that some rural and northern communities that rely on libraries will suffer if fewer services are available. Meanwhile, the mayor is welcoming the Ford government's announcement that it will reverse this year's cuts to municipal funding, and he's hoping to work with Queen's Park to make sure future cuts don't impact critical city services.
I'm certainly going to be going to that table when I say me. I mean, the city will be saying, well, look, there are ways in which we can find better ways to do things without impairing child care and without impairing public health.
Speaking to Matt Galloway on Metro Morning, Tory said he found out over the weekend that the Ford government was going to reverse the cuts. He says the move could mark a new beginning in the city's relationship with the province. Now, the opposition at Queen's Park not in a forgiving mood today. They're hammering the government over its plan to terminate a contract with the beer store, part of a plan to sell suds in corner stores. Lisa Shing has more on the fallout.
For a Tuesday afternoon, there's pretty steady foot traffic at a beer store in the east end of Toronto. Some customers say they would like a bit more choice on where to buy their beverage of choice.
Open it up. Let's open it up.
How do you feel about the fact that beer is only available right now in beer stores and some grocery stores?
Love it. Because it's government, we'll get more selection.
It'd be nicer to get it other places.
The government agrees. Right now, it's in a 10-year contract with the beer store signed by the Liberals in 2015. There's currently 6 years to go. Breaking that agreement could cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So yesterday, the government tabled legislation to try and get around that. The bill comes just days after the government special advisor on alcohol submitted a report looking at the future of sales. It's very critical of the beer store and the 2015 agreement signed by the Liberals. The recommendations is asking the government to look at how to get more beer into more places, but to also consider other options if talks fail.
I'm a proud beer store manager, one of 7,000 hardworking employees.
In recent weeks, the beer store has rolled out this publicity campaign trying to put pressure on the province, and in response to the bill, immediately warned it would challenge the PC government's move in court, which could come at a cost.
Is it worth it? Not really. I don't think anyone's going to want to be paying for it.
Today, the finance minister would not put a specific figure to that possible cost.
It would be premature for anybody and irresponsible for anybody to suggest it's going to cost anything when we will be legislating this.
Regardless, the opposition is pushing back on the government trying to fulfill one of its campaign promises. It says the PCs should be focusing on public services instead.
The government seems to be more interested in beer mongering than any other priority here.
What's the rush? The fact that they're ripping up contracts when it's clean energy, beer, and other things, there's a name for that internationally. It's called a banana republic.
Others say it's merely a distraction from other problems the PCs are facing in light of recent cuts. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
The items inside this bin are all supposed to be recyclable, but are they? I'm Lorenda Redekop. Malaysia is the latest country demanding that Canada take back its trash. It revealed a huge container of items that were supposed to be recyclable, but were actually garbage. Could some of those items come from Toronto? I'll have that story coming up.
Let's say you booked your vacation months ago, then days before you're supposed to leave, the flight is canceled. CBC Toronto has learned that's what happened to dozens of people who booked with Sunwing Airlines. As Natalie Nanowski tells us, the solutions the airline is offering would still cost travelers hundreds of dollars.
Unfortunately, flight has been canceled for the Vancouver to Toronto.
That's the message Tommy Kim got from Sunwing a few days ago. He and his wife are heading to Vancouver for a wedding, and Sunwing canceled their return flight.
We're trying to scramble, find a good flight for us to come back. No. It's all up there now.
Kim is just one of dozens who contacted CBC recently. Matthew Boyd got a cancellation email from Sunwing this morning. He's heading to Vancouver with his girlfriend later in June.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. I'm meeting my family. They're flying over from Ireland to see me, and all those plans were going to get cancelled. So
Sunwing offered both men 3 options: travel on the closest dates available to their trip, change their destination and get a $100 travel voucher, or cancel and get a refund. But both men say none of those options are a solution, especially since the Sunwing flights they booked months ago were $300. Now, similar flights are $800.
there's an extra cost incurred on accommodations or cancelling things, which they're not willing to reimburse us for.
Sunwing blames the recent cancellations on losing 4 of its planes. The Boeing 737, airliners that were grounded worldwide back in March after 2 deadly plane crashes.
What they are doing now is inexcusable. They had many weeks to prepare. They had many weeks to make alternate arrangements. Waiting until the very last minute to tell passengers their flight is canceled is something clearly within Sunwing's own control.
According to Sunwing's own travel guidelines, Lukasz says Sunwing should be rebooking customers on other airlines, and travelers should be demanding that.
If they ignore or refuse a request within a reasonable time, then I would purchase a ticket on another airline on my own and then make Sunwing pay for it. This may include having to sue Sunwing in small claims courts.
Sunwing does say it is offering to rebook customers with other airlines if the cancellation happened within 2 weeks of travel. Both men say they weren't offered that, but now they're going to look into that option. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
Do you have a similar story? Travel plans now up in the air? We'd like to hear from you. Send us an email, torontotips@cbc.ca. And you know what, Colette? We're feeling like we need a flight to a sunny destination because it sure isn't hot and sunny here.
I know, it feels like we've rewound a month. Like, what's going on? I know what's going on. I guess that's my job to tell you what's happening here. Well, just have a look at our stats from today, and it's a little bit deceiving in terms of what we're seeing, because when you look at our average high, 21 degrees, it looks like it wasn't that bad, 15.5 for today's high. But there's more to the story, and that is that was the temperature as we were coming through just after midnight last night. So in the wee morning hours, it was actually the high for the day. In the afternoon, we've barely been able to struggle at 12, 13 degrees, just trying to get there, and really having no luck. Our lows are fine. They're near seasonal. Have a look at the temperatures, though. 12 degrees at the moment, Toronto, Markham, Oshawa. You're our hot spot at 13 degrees at the moment. Now, still a little bit of patchy drizzle out there. Most of the showers are gone. You can see some of that cloud cover hanging in there and then trying to break up. We'll likely see a little patchy fog through the overnight hours due to the moisture in the air. But although there could be a little bit of drizzle here and there, most of the wet stuff is gone. Heavier stuff tomorrow morning towards southwestern Ontario, but we will likely see things breaking up by tomorrow afternoon. So there's a chance in the morning of a few stray showers, but most of it stays south, and into the afternoon we start to get into that sunshine that's going to help the temperature, as well as a southerly flow to our winds. So overnight tonight, 10 degrees. Tomorrow afternoon, okay, that's a little more like it, still below seasonal, but Dwight, I've got 17 for you, and then I have even warmer temperatures after that. I'll tell you about that coming up.
We need some warm temperatures for those Californians coming up to get a beating by our Raptors, Colette.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. We can at least give them some good weather if we're going to beat them up, right?
Thank you, Colette.
Yeah.
A second country in Asia is now demanding Canada take back its trash. Malaysia says shipping containers full of low-grade plastics from this country, too contaminated to be recycled, are sitting in its largest shipping port. Officials there are joining the government of the Philippines in refusing to process the waste. They have common reports from Port Klang in Malaysia.
Yet again, an Asian nation is demanding Canada to take back its plastic waste. Malaysian officials here at the largest port are looking inside these shipping containers. This one from Canada, and you can see inside, grocery bags from big Canadian brands, ones we know, as well as packaging from many retail and grocery products. And this comes on the heels of what's been happening in the Philippines. Malaysia is just the latest to say, Western world, and Canada in particular in this case, we do not want your low-value plastic, because what happens is when it arrives here, it is inevitably burned, buried, or dumped somewhere illegally, sometimes processed by illegal recycling factories. It's brought in, the higher value stuff is recycled, though there can be considerable environmental and labor considerations, considerable degradation that happens as a result of that. And just take a look here at the amount of interest that's happening in Malaysia as they open up these containers, which they now say will be sent back to their countries of origin. So that one, going back to Canada. Remember what's happened in the Philippines. On Thursday of this week, 69 shipping containers will be put on a ship, sent back to Canada, disposed in Vancouver, because of what Canada has increasingly been doing in its recycling industry, taking that stuff from your blue box and sending it abroad to be recycled. But the lower value plastic, this is what happens. Asian nations don't want it anymore. They say it is polluting, and the Malaysian environment minister there has told us very clearly, stop dumping this. And if you do, we're going to send it back. David Common, CBC News at Port Klang in Malaysia.
So what can people in Toronto do to stop this? Lorenda Redekop explains.
The bins are all lined up and ready to go. They say recycling, but it doesn't take long to find garbage inside. Black plastic can't be recycled. Robert Johnson has recycled for years, but still gets confused.
Some things are pretty obvious, but there's the odd thing when you're looking at it, like say, chalet containers, stuff like that. Is this recycling or not?
The City of Toronto has tried to get the message out, even using Raptors announcer Jack Armstrong and his trademark saying to try to get people on board.
Get that garbage out of here!
The city says none of its plastics recycling gets shipped overseas. Most of it stays in Ontario. A small percentage ends up in Quebec or the United States. But almost a third of the material people put in blue bins doesn't belong there and is considered contamination.
Recycling is just getting a lot more complicated. It's not because we can't follow the rules, because I know I do this full time and I find it hard to remember all the rules too.
Part of the problem, recycling rules vary by city or province, and new materials keep being invented.
Municipalities just don't have the money or resources to build new recycling technology every time a company decides to use a new chip bag or a new type of pop bottle. So the solution is really that we need to get companies to take responsibility for recycling.
She says the province is looking into that.
I live a zero waste lifestyle, so everything I buy, I don't buy plastic at all.
He says it's been a slow progression over 3 years, but some changes are easy.
Bags like bananas. Why are people putting bananas in those plastic bags?
He's rubbed off on his mom. She's added another R before reduce, reuse, and recycle.
So you refuse to buy things that are super wasteful, that have a lot of unnecessary plastic.
The City of Toronto also has an app and website so you can search more than 2,000 items and find out where they go. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
And one community is doing their part to eliminate waste. The Scarborough Mosque is going green during the month of Ramadan by banning plastic water bottles from being used or distributed at the mosque. To learn more about their initiative, Waste Free Ramadan, head to our website, cbc.ca/Toronto. It may be just another day, but today, the Dora Mavor Moore Awards released their nominees for this year, recognizing the best in theater, dance, and opera in Toronto. We'll tell you who some of those nominees are coming up after the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You don't know what it's like to feel that way.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
A scene from Rose, the original musical staged by the Soul Pepper Theatre Company. It's leading the pack for this year's Dora Mavor Moore Awards with 11 nominations. The Doras recognized the best in theatre, dance, and opera in Toronto. And Yelena is here with the details. A very good year for Soul Pepper.
Surprisingly good year, considering the very challenging year that they've had, obviously, beyond that, beyond the stage with all of the accusations and all of the turmoil that's gone on behind the scenes. Well, now there's some good news for everybody on stage, because what we're taking a look at here is 25 nominations in total. And the one that you just showed there, Dwight, this is Rose, this character who asks all these questions. Everybody else in her community seems to understand and know everything about life. They have no questions. They get it, and she doesn't. And so it's really life-affirming, and it's a show that really is about finding your own path. And so that is one that resonated with audiences, to be sure. 11, as we say. Another one from Soul Pepper, The Royale. This is for the Canadian premiere of The Royale. It's got 7 nominations, and it's based on the true story of African-American boxer Jack Johnson's fight to become the heavyweight world champion. This is a mid-20th century racial segregation, of course, and so that is a story that was very, very powerful as well. So another group outfit rather that has a lot of nominations behind them. Mervish Productions always tends to do very well. Next to Normal has 10 nominations. So this is a rock musical centered around a mom who really struggles with bipolar disorder and, you know, the effects that that has on the family. And then they also scored a lot of nominations for Dear Evan Hansen, 9 nominations. Now everybody knows that one got Best Tony, but here you get a listen to the Toronto production of it.
Can anybody see? Is anybody waving back to me?
Okay, so that's, you know, Mervish is huge. On the independent side of things, Dwight, when you think of smaller companies, really, really great score for the Coal Mine Theatre, because they are leading with 10 nominations, including, I'll give you a look at him right now, Eric Peterson. There he is in The Father, so he's got an acting nom. So yeah, that gives you just a bit of a sense of the talent that's out there.
Those were the individual nominations. So what company is leading the overall nominations?
No question. Canadian Opera Company can definitely toot their own horn a lot, because they scored 33 nominations in total. It's really quite phenomenal for various productions, including one I'm going to give you a look at right now, Hadrian. You probably heard about this one in the news because often Rufus Wainwright, he's one of the people behind this. He really was able to promote it in a great way. So that's Hadrian. And then the other one is Othello. I'm not saying Othello, I'm saying Othello, because this is an opera in 4 acts by Verdi, and it's based, of course, on Shakespeare's play Othello. So why don't I give you a little bit of that right now? Okay, so Dwight, we're going to find out who wins on June 25th when they hold the event at the Sony Center. And a really interesting tidbit to all of this is, for the first time, we are going to have non-binary categories here. So there's no best male this, best female that. Yeah. And, you know, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense when you think of other categories, right? There's no best male cinematographer and when you think of movies and things like that. So it really just kind of makes everything more uniform. And so people are applauding that decision. This is the first time. They don't even have that at the Tonys. So there you go. Toronto ahead of the game.
We are so progressive.
You got it.
Thanks, Yelena.
See you soon.
The man charged in the hit-and-run collision involving a 4-year-old boy not saying anything to awaiting media as he left the court today. 31-year-old Darren Dawson is facing several charges, including leaving the scene of an accident and driving with an improper license. He's out on bail tonight. The boy was hit by a motorcycle that left the scene on Sunday near Victoria Park in St. Clair. He suffered a serious brain injury that's left him in a coma. Victims and survivors of crime is being marked across the country this week. To raise awareness, Toronto Police Service is holding a conference about the issues facing victims and survivors of domestic violence.
The public really doesn't understand that there's more to domestic violence than just physical. You know, there's a psychological, there is financial. The goal of today is to make everyone more educated on what really goes on behind closed doors.
The event hopes to educate the public about the effects that domestic violence can have on a family and the community itself, and hopes to bring attention to the services, assistance, and laws in place to help victims, survivors, and their families. Survivor Kamal Dillon shared her story today in hopes it would resonate with others.
I get asked, why didn't you tell somebody? Even in my silence, I was speaking. If you looked at me, you would have seen the bruise. If you looked into my eyes, you would have seen the fear. And so my message today is, look at people, make eye contact. There is somebody that's waiting for you to acknowledge them.
The two-day conference runs until end of day tomorrow. Former Taliban hostage Caitlin Coleman is speaking out about her new life back home in the U.S. Last summer, she won a custody battle and was allowed to leave Canada with her children. Her husband, Joshua Boyle, is now on trial in Ottawa facing 19 charges, including assault with a weapon, sexual assault, and forcible confinement. He's pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. We are limited in what we can report outside of court proceedings, but Coleman told reporter Judy Trin about the moment she left Canada and her husband behind.
I feel like, I've been given another chance.
Now living in the northeastern United States, hundreds of kilometers away from her estranged husband, in a home full of toys and donated furniture, Caitlin Coleman says she's reclaimed her life.
A lot of my life was spent under Josh's thumb.
The American woman is still married to Canadian Joshua Boyle.
They are willing to kill us.
Kidnapped in Afghanistan, the couple was held hostage for 5 years. They had 3 children in captivity. After their high-profile 2017 rescue, they settled in Ottawa. Boyle is now on trial, accused of hitting Coleman, tying her up, and sexually assaulting her. Last year, after he was released on bail, Coleman fought for temporary sole custody of their children.
My lawyer called me on the phone and said, "We won." That was her first words to me, "We won." And that meant we could cross the border and we could go home.
Coleman's lawyer told her she had only hours to leave Canada in case Boyle decided to appeal. Pregnant at the time, she got help packing up her life from her sister, aunt, and mother Linda.
We'd been waiting so long and trying to do so much, and then we had this very narrow window to get everybody out.
Boyle's trial is currently suspended until a judge decides whether the defense can question Coleman on her past sexual history. In the meantime, Coleman has filed for divorce.
You want your bottle?
Few people know where she lives. She's now a mother of 4, finally able to have big dreams for her little ones.
Obviously, I want a really bright future for my kids. They're all very intelligent, so I have high hopes.
Judy Trin, CBC News, Ottawa.
Dozens of tornadoes rampaged across the American Midwest overnight. Tens of thousands of homes are without power. In Ohio, 1 person was killed and dozens injured in what officials are calling catastrophic damage.
It's like in the distance, the train coming, and I jumped out of bed.
I came out last night, and the first things I thought of was war zone, because it just looked like somebody just took a bomb. And
heartbreaking. Heartbreaking.
It's been a week of deadly weather in the central states. Ohio and Indiana have been hardest hit, and it's not over yet. Tornadoes, powerful winds, and flooding are expected to continue until tomorrow. See the damage down there, Colette, and sometimes we get the remnants of these storms up here, too.
Yeah, sometimes we do, and certainly even more so into southwestern Ontario we see that. There's a couple of things going on, and that's because there are a couple of different storm systems. So the first one now a little more towards the east, but still having an impact on the Ohio Valley tonight. That's the one that rolled through and brought the problems with the images from all that destruction that we were just looking at. So you can see even into Ohio, adding insult to injury in some regard. But there is yet another system tonight, and this one, another strong one, pushing through the Midwest. Take you in closer, and what I've laid on here now are the storm reports, and you can see just how many of these there are. So coming into the National Weather Service, a lot of these are reports of hail, but some of these, if we go in for a closer look, and I just kind of freeze this for you, some of these are actually showing that there is some circulation through here. So looking at that possibility of seeing that circulation and tornadic activity through this area. And this really hits close to home for me because Topeka, that is where I grew up in Tornado Alley, and that is where my parents live, and this is what's happening there right now. That timestamp, it's actually because they're an hour behind. So a lot of active weather, lots to be keeping an eye on there. And you can see what's happening through Ontario, if I bring it back closer to our home, is that the heaviest stuff seems to be staying, the more significant stuff just to the south of even the Windsor area, but still, it's pretty close by. So it's just been such a spring throughout the U.S., and it's not over with yet in terms of what they're seeing there with active weather. All right, back home, what we're dealing with are the cool temperatures, right? 12 degrees, the current reading. Such a struggle today. We hit our high closer to midnight last night, and we are going to find things get a little bit better for us as we go through the next 24 hours. And then after that, it gets even better still. So the outlook here, cloud cover in place, a little patchy fog or drizzle still possible. Into tomorrow morning, though, we'll begin to eventually see this start to break up, so that by the time we get into the afternoon hours, I think we'll be seeing some sunny breaks, and the southerly wind will help to push those temperatures up. Now into Thursday morning, most of this wants to stay to the south of us, but the next system may bring in some showers kind of in the morning towards midday, then pushing out, and Thursday really improves. And I know that's important because, of course, that's Thursday, that's game night. Jurassic Park, things are going to be looking pretty good, and the temperatures look pretty good on Thursday as well. Overnight tonight for the GTA, 9 to 11 degrees for an overnight low. So that's actually close to seasonal. It's these daytime highs today running about 10 degrees below seasonal almost. And tomorrow they're still about 5 below, but I think we'll take this when we get some sunshine and we can see those readings at least kind of getting up there towards those upper teens. As we go into Thursday, much milder still, will be into the low 20s. Friday, high pressure rolls in. Now, it's short-lived, and that Saturday morning we have a chance for some showers, but I think that will push out, and most of the weekend is looking quiet, Dwight, without the active weather, and some decent temperatures, too.
We like quiet. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Law enforcement calls it one of the most notorious sources of pirated or counterfeit goods in the world. Now, 8 people have been charged with selling fake goods at Pacific Mall. York police say they began looking into complaints about alleged counterfeit luxury clothing and handbags last year. Last June, officers raided several businesses at the mall and one store owner's home. Thousands of pieces of merchandise were seized. The majority of the goods were counterfeit. Police say they met with representatives from many companies, including Louis Vuitton, Dior, and Givenchy. For the first time in history, Toronto will host the NBA Championships. The Golden State Warriors will be making their way up north for Game 1 on Thursday. And if you are lucky enough to get a ticket, hold tight. The NBA is warning buyers beware when it comes to counterfeits. Adrian Chung joins us from Real Sports Apparel. And Adrian, lots of merch flying off the racks today.
There definitely is, Dwight. Certainly, there's been so many people coming by the jersey wall here. And I got to say that this Kawhi jersey, they tell me, is almost sold out at this location. So as of tomorrow morning, it might just be a collector's item. And that really speaks to how pumped up the city is for the Raptors right now. And don't forget that the NBA Finals is an international event, which means that there are people from all around the world coming here to Toronto to make money, both legally and illegally. Here are some ideas on how to stay safe this week.
The buzz of the Toronto Raptors goes far beyond the pulsating crowds at Jurassic Park. Thousands are lucky enough to snag tickets for Game 1. Thousands more want into Scotiabank Arena.
We've never had in Toronto this type of kind of tentpole bucket list event.
So we've steadily seen fan interest grow and grow each round.
And with that demand for an international event comes an opportunity for the fraudsters to rear their heads.
What kind of tips would you give people?
To get into the building, you're looking at a few $100s or more. The number one thing is don't make a transaction on the street. Don't post your ticket on a social media platform. Don't post that barcode. You can tell people you're going to the event, but don't make it easy for someone to kind of grab that barcode.
The demand for tickets is nearly unprecedented in Toronto sports history. The tickets to Game 1 sold out in minutes, and the ones for official resale on Ticketmaster begin at $1,200, which means there's a lot of money to be made and plenty of chances to get ripped off. StubHub says even seemingly real digital tickets can be screenshots sold over and over again. But it's not just tickets that can get you duped. Real merchandise is easy to find from the team shops, but even fake stuff is often hard to spot.
Counterfeiters have gotten pretty sophisticated. They make tickets that look real. So anytime you're buying on the street, even if it seems like it's, wow, this is really nice thick paper, it's raised print and all that, counterfeiters are doing all that. There's only one seat per ticket.
The NBA says it's a game of cat and mouse that for now, they're winning. But among the excitement, a reminder to keep your radar up.
Now, the latest 2016 study shows that counterfeit goods is a $9.5 billion business when it comes to the four major sports. So thousands certainly will be looking for the real thing when it comes to merchandise, when it comes to tickets, especially heading into Game 1. And on that point, Dwight, I got a question for you. You got a spare ticket for me for Game 1?
I wish I did, buddy. I'll be working and watching with the fans, probably in Jurassic Park. Might have to grab you down there with me. Thanks, Adrian. Oh, dreams. All right. So the city's still reveling in the big win. The players have already started looking ahead to the finals. Pascal Siakam says it's time to hit the reset button.
Once the series is over, it's over. You know, we move on, and we know it's going to be a different series, and it's a new team, different style of play. I think everything is different, so it's a different mindset. We don't think about everything else. You know, it doesn't matter how we got here. We're here, and we're ready to win it. Because the game is over. Is next series, and I think the jersey helps too. Different jerseys.
If you want to give any of those jerseys away, I got you, Siakam. The team hit the court at OVO Athletics Center for practice this morning. They're looking good. The players did share how the team plans on limiting the success of their biggest threat without giving away too much. They got to hold that Steph Curry guy down.
Any player in the NBA likes space, freedom, movement. Nobody really wants to be banged on and touched on and held and grabbed, and just got to try to be as physical as you can, slow him down, and keep it contest. And so a guy like that who is a really good shooter against contests, you can't really give him free looks and let him feel free and easy. You just got to try to muck it up.
And Fred is actually playing like Steph these days. The Warriors swept Portland to get to the finals. Now that sweep has given the Warriors 9 days of rest. The Raptors will take on the defending NBA champs in Game 1 at home this Thursday, 9 p.m. at Scotiabank Arena.
At the end of the day, though, the most effective path to reform would be to shut down the platforms, at least temporarily.
Execs from Facebook, Twitter, Google, and other tech giants are in Ottawa today answering questions on what they do with the information they collect from us. We'll take you to those hearings after the break. And as we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This market update is brought to you by SSQ Insurance, reminding you that stronger communities make every person stronger.
Representatives of big tech were called to Ottawa today to answer questions about social media feeds, privacy of personal data, disinformation, and the upcoming election. Parliamentarians from more than a dozen countries are asking what Facebook, Twitter, and Google are doing to protect social media users from malicious use of data, misuse that can and has in recent years affected democratic elections. Julie Van Dusen is following the story from Ottawa. You've been watching and listening. So, Julie, who was asking, who was answering, and what did they say?
Well, I mean, the company that seemed to get the brunt of the ire of the politicians was Facebook, for sure, because two empty chairs sat there, Mark Zuckerberg's chair and Sheryl Sandberg. They were both invited to come to the committee and explain some of the policies of Facebook, and they basically blew off that request. They were subpoenaed. They ignored that. And the politicians were really ticked off, and now they've actually issued a standing order that if Zuckerberg or Sheryl Sandberg show their faces in Canada, whether they're coming fishing or going to a tech conference, they will be ordered to show up and answer questions at a committee. If that committee's not sitting, it'll find a way to sit. Politicians are very, very angry. In the meantime, two lesser, I guess you would call them, executives from Facebook came, answered questions, gave assurances that they're doing all sorts of different initiatives to protect privacy and disinformation and, push down fake videos and so on. But MPs were very skeptical, Dwight. They just gave a recent example of the Nancy Pelosi video that had aired, a fake video showing her looking drunk, that was aired numerous times and shared certainly by President Trump and Rudy Giuliani and others. So the question to Facebook is, why is that video still up there? Take a listen.
Could Facebook explain why it's decided not to remove the video of Nancy Pelosi that prevents a distorted impression of her in order to undermine her public reputation?
We have taken the approach to inform people that it is fake so that they can actually understand why that video is on the platform and what other independent parties have considered this to be. They have considered it to be false.
It's clearly distorted. It's there to undermine senior public figures.
People understand that this video is fake, and then they can make their further decisions from there.
Okay, then. So where does this all go from here? What happens now, Julie?
Well, that certainly didn't give members of Parliament who are coming up to an election much comfort. So the thing is, we are facing an election in October, and right now there's going to be a committee of deputy ministers who will kind of monitor information that's out there in the election campaigns and maybe sound the alarm if something, looks nefarious. But these politicians that were here today from many countries say basically enough is enough. It is time to regulate Facebook and others because they can't be trusted to regulate themselves.
Yeah, they're certainly making a lot of money out there. Senior reporter Julie Van Dusen in our parliamentary bureau in Ottawa. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Feel great, actually. It's a long time coming. It's a lot of hard work they put in. It was put into getting to this point. A lot of ups and downs, and just for the franchise and for the Canadian fan base and the whole country. It's a great time.
Remember him? He used to be our Kyle Lowry. Coming up, we'll hear from former Raptor player and assistant coach Alvin Williams on what he thinks about this team going to the NBA Finals. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Young entrepreneurs at Ryerson University had a royal visitor today. The Duke of York, Prince Andrew, stopped by to meet with students at Ryerson's Digital Media Zone.
We're both passionate about food security, growing up on a farm as well as being an immigrant to this country. And we're startled by the amount of food insecurity faced by Canadians in remote communities.
It was exciting to meet him. It was exciting to do the showcase, and I think this was a fantastic opportunity. We're going to continue doing what we've been doing, trying to develop this technology and find as many partners as we can. And he suggested the University of Bristol, so that's probably the next email.
Students held a visual demonstration of their products for the Duke of York, explaining how their work is making a social impact in Canada and abroad. In return, Prince Andrew offered his suggestions and feedback for the young entrepreneurs. There's no question smartphones have changed our relationship with technology. A high school teacher on Prince Edward Island decided to find out just how connected his students are by having them count how many notifications they got on their phones in less than an hour. Jessica Doria Brown has the results and the reaction.
It was a rare treat for these students, the chance to keep their cell phones on in class and not miss a single message or post. The goal, to see how many notifications they'd receive.
The hope is that they apply it to their lives and that they do understand that there's negative health impacts of screen time and that they balance everything out.
In just under an hour, the notifications were in the hundreds, a number that surprised their teacher, but not the students.
Wasn't as surprising because we're always on our phones.
No, I thought it was informational, but I thought it was really realistic to our daily life now because everybody is on their phone.
For some of the students who received multiple notifications, it was a chance to consider keeping their phone off a little more often.
10 notifications in one class is a lot, and it is definitely easy to get distracted because when you get a notification on your phone, it's not easy to just leave it and not respond to it.
Their teacher says it's not just about staying focused in class, it's about understanding the potential consequences of all these distractions on your mental and physical well-being.
The conversation kind of snowballed into a larger, broader topic of health. And, when we're using our devices, what time is that taking away from maybe being active, being outside, moving our bodies? How's it affecting our sleep? How's it affecting our social interactions face-to-face with others?
Jason plans to keep the conversation going about cell phone use and health and says cell phone etiquette will be an ongoing topic in his classroom. Jessica Doria Brown, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Check out this man's Raptors jersey collection. Raj Sirhan lives in London, Ontario. He's been a fan of the team for nearly 2 decades. He started collecting jerseys in 2001. His first, of course, Vince Carter. It was a gift from his mom. Sirhan's prediction for the NBA Finals, I like it. He says his heart is telling him our Raps. I just want to keep going here. This is hilarious. Our Raps in 6. And he's got every color possible. Well, I had that one. That's an oldie but a goodie. I wonder if he had Alvin Williams' jersey in there. Alvin, of course, a former Toronto Raptors player and a former assistant coach for the team. He's now an NBA analyst for Sportsnet Canada. He spoke to CBC News earlier today about why he thinks this team has what it takes to make it all the way.
It's a long time coming. It's a lot of hard work they put in. It was put into getting to this point, a lot of ups and downs. And, you know, just for the franchise and for the Canadian fan base and the whole country, it's a great time, and I'm going to enjoy it. I can imagine being at this part of the season this late, you know, having that emotional and that mental focus that you're going to need to have the whole game and forever how long this series goes. So that's going to be the most exhausting thing, you know, just always being locked in. And at this point, you know, everyone's going to be hurt. You know, everyone has injuries and stuff like that now, but that mental aspect and that effort aspect, that's going to be the biggest thing. So like Coach Nurse said, you got to emphasize that, and everyone has to be on board with that, because ultimately that's the only thing that you can control during the course of this game. Kyle has found a great balance of scoring the ball, being that facilitator, but you know, most of all, he's that key piece from on the defensive side that makes the dirty plays. You know, he's the hustle plays, and he just holds all that stuff together, kind of like the glue guy that initiates the defensive and that effort piece. So I think as long as Kyle continues being that top point guard that he is, with that balance of scoring, attacking, being aggressive, and also facilitating, I think the Raptors have a very good chance to win games and possibly win this series. I can't give a prediction, but I do like the makeup of the Toronto Raptors as far as their maturity. I like their even though they haven't been here as a team before, you know, they have a few players, Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard, that have been to the finals, and Serge Ibaka, but you know, I like the makeup of the team. This is a resilient team, and this is a team that believe in one another and they believe in their coaches. And I've seen in the past how Golden State, they have a lot of ups and downs. They have a lot of discrepancies. They have certain things that can make a team waver, even as good as they are. So I like the makeup of the Toronto Raptors team. Individual performances, that's going to be a different thing. But as far as a team, I give Toronto Raptors a very good chance to be NBA champions.
Yeah, and the Golden State, they've won 5 times straight. You've been there too much. They're tired now. We're going to take them. The weather, though. All these folks are coming up here from Cali. We can still have winter out there, Colin. I felt like apologizing to some tourists today, saying, I swear it's really not usually this cold at this time of year here.
Yeah, let's not do the thing like we did with the NBA All-Star
game when it was like the coldest weekend in how many decades?
Yeah, that's not happening.
No.
But anyone who did fly in today, okay, this is not indicative of what we normally have or what we are going to have. So in terms of what we've got tonight, still some of this cloud cover. Now, the overnight lows are near seasonal. That's not a problem. So 10 degrees for our overnight low, a little bit of patchy fog and some drizzle still possible into tomorrow morning. But into the afternoon, okay, this is a little more like it. Still about 5 degrees below seasonal, but 17 for the high. And we'll see those clouds breaking up tomorrow afternoon, giving us some sunshine.
We need in the 20s. That's it for our show tonight. Thank you for watching. Mike Wise has you covered at 11. Colin and I will see you back here tomorrow.